We are Monday, March 30th, 2020, Math Lesson 4-11, Solve and Create Word Problems. So our very first type of word problem that we are going to deal with is array multiplication. This just shows us an array here when they are in rows and columns and how to put them into a multiplication equation. So when we do this with an array, we always count how many rows we have. We go down the side. So here it shows us 3 rows. And across the top we have our columns, 6 columns across the top. We put this into a multiplication equation saying 3 times 6 gives us equals our total number. We can also say that this multiplication symbol stands for groups of. This helps us for when we need to decide how to draw an array or how to label an array. 3 groups of 6. Okay, so if I were to put those into groups, I could circle my row. 3 groups of 6. That is array multiplication. Let's head down to array division. Now remember, multiplication and division, they are basically the same thing, just turned around. When we multiply, we get a bigger number. When we divide, we're taking our total number and breaking it into number of groups and how many in each group. So this array, we have 20 purple dots here. We are breaking it down into numbers of groups. So it's already circled for us in green. And let's count how many groups we have. 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. Alright, here we go. We have 4 groups. And that gives us how many in each group will be our quotient? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to count how many is in one group. So we go back and read our full division equation. 20 divided by 4 equals 5. I can check my work by saying this backwards. 5 times 4 equals 20. Yep, and I know that's correct, so I know that my answers are right. Now, I could also take this and say 20, my total, divided by how many are in each group, how many I want to put in a group, and that will give me the number of groups. This works because it is the commutative property. We can switch these around. They are all a part of a fact family. So let's jump to another type of word problem we're going to look at. Repeated groups of multiplication, and that is just exactly what it tells us. Repeated groups. That means that they are just going to have the same number in each group, and they are added together. So if we jump down here, we have there are blank groups of sweets. Looks like we have some candies we were dealing with. So we're going to count how many groups we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our groups are circled in red. There are 5 groups. If we go to the second step, we're just going to add together how many are in each group for the number of groups we have. So how many sweets do we have in a group? 1, 2, 3. And we have 5 groups, so that means that I need to add 3 5 times. So 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 plus 3 more is 9. 9 plus 3 more is 12. 12 plus 3 is 15. Now I need to put this into a multiplication equation because repeated groups is exactly that, multiplication. Remember back on that first slide, this 3 groups of 6, that's exactly how we are going to know how to put this into our equation. How many groups do we have? 5. 5 groups of 3. And 5 times 3 equals 15. And our very last one, so we just did repeated groups multiplication. Now we're going to talk about repeated groups division. So again, division is just taking our total number and breaking it into groups, or how many is in each group. So here I have 12 blue dots. I already kind of have them into groups. So I know that I will have 3 in each group, and that's what our first equation is asking us. 12 divided by 3, so putting 3 in each group, we need to find out how many groups we're going to have. So I'm going to circle them here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that means I have 4 groups. Then if I was trying to ask and find out how many I wanted in each group, and I knew that I was going to have 4 groups, and find out how many is in each one, I see that I have 3 blue dots in each group. So 12 divided by 4 equals 3. So if you need to go back and look at these, you are sure welcome to. Array multiplication, array division, repeated groups multiplication, and repeated groups division. So if you do not have your class activity page out, 4-11, this will be the time to do so. We're going to go through a few. It's page 274 down here. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. At the top, identify types of problems, and we are going to start with our directions. Read each problem and decide what type of problem it is. Write the letter from the list below, then write an equation to solve the problem. So reading these directions, I know that I have 2 jobs that I'm going to have to do. I need to write the letter from the list below. That is this list. It is a gray box, A through F. And my second job will be writing an equation to solve the problem. Okay, so let's jump down to number 1. If we look in our gray box, we know that we will have array multiplication, array division, repeated groups multiplication, and repeated groups division with an unknown group size, or repeated groups division with an unknown multiplier, that's the number of groups, or none of the above. So that would be like addition or subtraction. If we jump to number 1, we have Mrs. Ostriga. We're going to say that's her name. So Mrs. Ostriga has 3 children. She wants to buy 5 juice boxes for each child. How many juice boxes does she need? So we know, I'm going to draw it out over here. We know that she has 3 children, so I'm going to draw 3 circles, 1 for each child. And she wants to buy 5 juice boxes. So just to save time, I'm just going to put the number in here, and you can certainly do that as well. So 5 juice boxes for each child. Now our question, we need to make sure we know what they're asking for. How many juice boxes does she need? So that sounds to me like she needs to get a bigger number because she has 5 for each child. So that's kind of like she's going to be adding them together. But does this look familiar to one of the slides that we looked at earlier? Something to do with a group with the same number in each one. Let's go back up here. Was it array multiplication? No. I know it's not array division because we're not breaking it down into smaller groups. Repeated groups multiplication? Sure kind of looks like it. So I'm going to see that that is letter C. I'm going to put that down. And I'm going to put a semicolon because I know that this is a 2-step problem. Okay. So that was the first job, write the letter from the list below. Now I need to write an equation to solve the problem. So a multiplication equation, if I see that I have 3 groups up here, and I need to multiply, I'm going to multiply times how many is in each group. So 3 times 5 equals, and we know our 5, so if we're counting by 5 3 times, 5, 10, 15. So I will put this equation right here on my line down here. And my very last step will be to find my label. So I'm going to go back up here and see how many juice boxes does she need. So I know my label is going to be juice boxes. So don't forget to write your label here. Let's jump over to the second one real quick. We'll go through that and then we'll go to the back and then you can come back and finish the rest. So once you are done writing your label and your equation for number 1, let's look at number 2. Sophie picked 15 peaches from one tree and 3 peaches from another. How many peaches did she pick in all? Ooh, I have a key word here. In all. I know that in all is a key word for addition. Let's go back and reread our problem and see if that works. So Sophie picked 15 peaches from one tree and 3 peaches from another. How many peaches did she pick in all? That sure sounds like adding to me. If I have 15 and she picks 3 more, that's just adding. So let's jump back. Let's find out which type of word problem we have. It's not multiplication, it's not division, so we know these first ones are out. Remember I said none of the above would either be addition or subtraction. So I'm going to put the letter F and a semicolon. So I still need to write my equation here, which I already have a start to it. So 15 plus 3, 5 plus 3 is 8. And I still have a 1 in my tens place. So 15 plus 3 is 18. Write your equation down here. 15 plus 3 equals 18. And don't forget your label. Our question is asking for how many peaches did she pick in all? So 18 peaches. Once you are done writing that, let's flip to the back real quick. Okay, so we are using patterns and mental math to complete multiplication. So let's look at the very first one. I'm going to zoom in here. The very first one. Let's start at 3 times 4 using our multiplication strategies and facts. We know that 3 times 4 equals 12. So I look down here right under it and it says 3 times 40. Remember back to when we multiplied times 10. All we do is take that number and put a 0 behind it because 10 has 1 0. So it's kind of like when we use our patterns to multiply, if it has a 0 and it's the same numbers as before, so these 3's are the same, 4's are the same, but there's just a 0, we're just going to add a 0 behind. So that'd be like adding 40 3 times. So 3 times 4 is 12, and that makes 3 times 40. Put a 0 behind it, 120. 40 plus 40 is 80, plus another 40 is 120. Same thing over here. Now they switched it around. Let's look at number 2. So 10 times 2, anything times 2 is the number. And it's self-added together, so 10 plus 10 is 20. Now we have 100 times 2. So we could just say 100 plus 100, and we know that's 200. Or we could just add another 0. 20 has 1 0, 10 has 1 0. So 100 has 2 zeros, times 2 is 200. 2 zeros there. So, using your patterns, please complete this page. And don't forget to go back to the front side and finish the rest of the word problems. Make sure you have both of your jobs down and your labels. So hopefully this was helpful. Remember, you can go back and look at the different strategies that we talked about if you need, and if you have any questions, please let me know.